read the book of Revelation, chapter 14. In Revelation chapter 14, we want to go and read there so we can get a better handle on what we're going to be actually talking about. We're going to also have a review, a little review, but I want us to read. We want to read the third angel from verse 9. See, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark. So we had studied, we already studied the worshipping of the beast. We studied the image of the beast. Now we're going to look at the mark of the beast, because he said that if you receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink, in verse 10, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So, if you notice, in verse 11, he says that the smoke of the torment ascended up forever and ever, and there are no rest night or day who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receive the mark of his name. So receiving the mark of the beast is a very serious thing. I say that every person on earth should be curious to get a proper understanding of the beast, and they must not receive the mark of this beast, else they will not be in God's kingdom. Now, if you go to verse 12, you will notice a very simple contrast. In verse 12, he says, here is the patience of the saints. So in other words, in verses 9 to 11, they show you one group of people what's going to happen as they accept the mark of the beast. And in verse 12, they show you just the opposite. They show you the saints. So here are the patience of the saints. Here are they which keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. So the people who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus is not those who receive the mark of the beast. So you see right there, if you look at it, it will give you an understanding, not very much in detail, but enough so that you could see that there is a difference between the saints and those who have the mark of the beast. We also discuss, when we look at the image of the beast, in the identification of the beast, in chapter 13 of Revelation, we went through, when we read Revelation verses 1 and on, and when we read from verses 11 and on, we then had the image of the beast, the second beast, and we had an idea of the first beast. Now, in order to know what the mark is, we must first identify the beast. So that I know we did very well already in our last two lessons, but just as a little review, you see, also when we talk about the beast, we could also be talking about the Antichrist. So here you have in Revelation chapter 13 verses 1 to 8, and when we read from verse 11 and on, we have the description of the beast. But what we have here is a number of points we're going to look at, which we would have read from the lesson. Now, the points are that beast came up from the sea in verse 1 of Revelation chapter 13. So if you have Revelation chapter 13 open, we want to just go through again a little review. If you have Revelation 13 open, you want to open it again. And let's just look at this again so that we get a good understanding of what is it worshiping the beast could entail. We must first know who the beast is. In verse 1, he is talking about the beast coming up of the sea. Okay, let us read verse 1. He said, I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea. So that beast come out from the sea. Alright? And but there was a few things about that beast. He had 10 horns, and he had 10 crowns. Now, we know that when we talk about 10 horns, we're talking about 10 kingdoms. And when we talk about 10 crowns, we're talking about the kingly rulership, because the king wear crowns, right, on the head. And on the head, they had blaspheming. Well, blaspheming here is taking the place of God, wanting to forgive sin, calling yourself God on earth, saying you representing God on earth, and all those different areas that constitute blasphemy. Now, for the second, he talk about the composite of the four beasts of Daniel 7 and verse 2. So we definitely knew that in verse 2, we talk about the dragon give its power, where the dragon gave its power and authority. Okay, so that's very important for us to also note. You see in verse 2, he say, the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet like bear, and his mouth like lion, and the dragon gave him his power, and his seat and great authority. So that beast had power not from God. He had power from the dragon. And we know that the dragon is the devil. We know the dragon is described as Satan, the devil, the serpent. So that beast gets all his authority and his power from the devil. But he's using the name of God to deceive people. Alright. The next one, he says, he received a deadly wound. Okay? That beast in verse 3 received a deadly wound, but we also notice that that deadly wound was healed. Alright, the next one is said that the beast is a strong political power. So that beast is a very strong political power. Right? Because the world, all the world, you see, just remember that word, all the world, in verse 3, you see it there? In verse 3, in the end of the verse, you see, all the world wandered after the beast. So what does that tell you? It tells you that that beast is a political power, a very powerful political power. Now, the next here is that it tells you that that beast is a very strong religious power. You see, how do I know it's a very strong religious power? Come down and look at verse. Let's look at verse 7. Let's look at verse 6, 7, and 8. And he opened his mouth and blasphemed against God. Now, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. So this is all religious matters. Now, and it was given unto him, that is the beast, to make war again with the saints. So that beast will make war with the saints and overcome them. He's going to destroy, he's going to kill, he's going to persecute them. And power, see that again? Power was given to him over all kindreds, tongue, and nation.